The phone call came at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. I was working from home, designing graphics for a client presentation, when my cell rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Patterson, this is Monica Garcia from First National Bank downtown. I'm calling because there's a situation here that I think you should know about. My heart started racing. What kind of situation? Monica hesitated, then said quietly, your husband is here right now with a woman. She looks exactly like you, Mrs. Patterson. Same hair color, same height, similar facial features. She's trying to access your joint account using what appears to be a fake ID with your name on it. But you're clearly not here, so I'm calling to verify. Is your husband supposed to be on a business trip right now? My blood ran cold. Yes, he left this morning for a conference in Chicago. He won't be back until Sunday. Monica's voice became more serious. Mrs. Patterson, your husband is definitely here in Portland, not Chicago. And this woman with him, she's pretending to be you. They're trying to withdraw a substantial amount of money from your joint account. I've stalled them by saying we need additional verification, but I think you need to come down here immediately. And Mrs. Patterson, don't tell your husband I called. Before we dive into what I discovered at that bank, and trust me, what I found out that day destroyed my entire world and then rebuilt it into something better. I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. Your support helps me bring you more incredible stories like this one. Now let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand how shocking this betrayal was, you need to know the whole story. My name is Sarah Patterson. And until that phone call, I thought I had a solid marriage. I was 38 years old, married to Ryan Patterson for 12 years, living in a beautiful house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. We had 2 children, Madison, who was 10, and Tyler, who was 8. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, making good money while being available for the kids. Ryan was a financial analyst at an investment firm downtown, successful and respected in his field. We had the life everyone dreams of. The nice house, the good schools, the family vacations, the stable income. Ryan and I had met in our mid-20s at a mutual friend's wedding. He'd been charming and attentive, pursuing me with flowers and romantic dinners and thoughtful gestures. We dated for 2 years before getting married in a ceremony that felt like a fairy tale. The first few years were happy, genuinely happy. We bought our house, had our kids, built our careers. Ryan was a good father when he was around, playing with the kids, helping with homework, showing up for their school events when his work schedule allowed. But over the past 2 years, things had started to feel different. Ryan had become more distant, more focused on work, traveling more frequently for conferences and client meetings. He'd always traveled some for his job, but it had increased significantly. He'd be gone 3 or 4 days a week sometimes, always with reasonable explanations about important clients or networking opportunities. I'd accepted it because his career was going well, and the extra income meant we could afford things like the kids' private school and our annual vacation to Hawaii. What I didn't notice, or maybe didn't want to notice, was how secretive Ryan had become. He was always on his phone, taking calls in other rooms, password protecting everything. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became vague and generic. When I'd suggest we plan a date night or a weekend away together, he'd say he was too busy or too tired. Our physical intimacy had declined to almost nothing, which he blamed on work stress and exhaustion from travel. 3 months ago, Ryan had told me about a major conference coming up in Chicago, a 4-day event where his firm was sending their top analysts. He'd be gone Thursday through Sunday, he said, and it was a great opportunity to network with potential clients and industry leaders. I'd helped him pack, made sure he had everything he needed, kissed him goodbye Thursday morning as he loaded his suitcase into his car. He'd texted me from the airport around 9 saying his flight was boarding, then texted again around noon saying he'd landed and was heading to his hotel. Except now, 4 hours later, a bank employee was telling me he wasn't in Chicago at all. He was right here in Portland, at our bank, with a woman who looked like me, trying to steal money from our account. I grabbed my keys and purse and drove downtown, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. My mind was racing with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Who was this woman? Why did she look like me? What was Ryan planning? Why would he fake a business trip and then try to rob our own account? The bank was a large branch in the financial district, modern and busy with customers. I walked in and went straight to the information desk. I'm Sarah Patterson. Monica Garcia called me about a situation with my account. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly and she picked up the phone, speaking quietly. Within 30 seconds, a professional-looking woman in her 40s appeared from a back hallway. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Monica. Thank you for coming so quickly. Please follow me. She led me through a door marked Private Banking and down a hallway to a small office with a window that looked out into the main banking floor. Monica gestured for me to look through the window, which I realized was one-way glass. They're at window 3, she said, pointing. I looked and my entire world tilted sideways. There was Ryan, my husband, standing at a teller window in the casual business attire he'd worn that morning. And next to him was a woman who made my breath catch in my throat. Monica was right. She looked eerily like me. Same shoulder-length brown hair, similar height and build, same general facial structure. She was wearing clothes similar to what I might wear, a casual blazer and jeans. If you saw her from a distance or in a quick glance, you might mistake her for me. Who is she? I whispered. Monica pulled up something on her computer. Her ID says Sarah Patterson, but it's clearly a fake. The photo is of her, not you, but it has your name, your birth date, your address. It's a good fake though. Good enough that it might fool someone who wasn't paying attention. They came in about 45 minutes ago asking to make a large withdrawal from your joint account. $50,000. My stomach dropped. 50,000. Monica nodded grimly. Your husband claimed you needed the money for a family emergency, that you were buying a car in cash for a relative. The woman presented the fake ID and your husband presented his real ID. They expected the teller to just process it. But our teller, thankfully, noticed something was off. The woman's behavior didn't match someone doing a routine withdrawal. She seemed nervous, kept looking at your husband for cues. So the teller said she needed a manager to approve such a large withdrawal. That's when I got involved. Monica continued. I came out to speak with them and something immediately felt wrong. The woman looked like you based on the photo we have on file, but not quite right. I asked her some verification questions, things like your mother's maiden name and the street you grew up on. She got them wrong. Then I said I needed to call you to confirm the withdrawal for security purposes. Your husband got very nervous and said that wasn't necessary, that they were in a hurry. That's when I knew something was really wrong. I stared through the window at my husband and this stranger wearing my face and my identity. What did you do? Monica smiled slightly. I told him the system was running slow and the withdrawal would take about 30 minutes to process, that they should have a seat in the waiting area. Then I went to my office and pulled up your account records. You have a personal cell phone listed separately from the joint contact information. So I called you directly. I figured if something fraudulent was happening, the real Sarah Patterson would want to know. Thank you, I said, my voice shaking. Thank you for calling me. What do I do now? Monica gestured to her desk. We document everything and we call the police. What they're attempting is identity fraud and attempted theft. Those are serious crimes. But before we do that, I need to ask you some questions. Do you know this woman? Have you ever authorized your husband to make large withdrawals without your direct approval? Is there any legitimate reason he might need $50,000 that you're not aware of? I shook my head to all of it. I've never seen that woman before in my life. And no, Ryan would never make a withdrawal that large without discussing it with me first. We make financial decisions together. And he's supposed to be in Chicago right now. He told me he was at a conference. He sent me texts from the airport this morning. I pulled out my phone and showed Monica the texts. She photographed him with her phone, so he deliberately deceived you about his location. Monica said, making notes. And he's attempting to steal $50,000 from your joint account using a woman with a fake ID pretending to be you, Mrs. Patterson. I'm very sorry to say this, but your husband is committing fraud against you. We need to protect you and your assets immediately. The next hour was a blur of activity. Monica put a hold on all my accounts, preventing any withdrawals without my in-person authorization. She contacted the bank's security team and the Portland Police Department. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, took my statement, examined the fake ID, and reviewed the security footage. They confirmed that what Ryan was attempting was indeed identity fraud and attempted theft, both felonies. While this was happening, Ryan and the fake Sarah were still sitting in the waiting area, getting increasingly agitated. I could see them through the one-way glass. Ryan checking his watch and whispering to the woman, who kept nervously playing with her hair. They had no idea I was there. No idea they'd been caught. No idea the police were on their way to arrest them. One of the police officers, a woman named Officer Davis, asked me what I wanted to do. We can arrest them right now for attempted fraud, but I want to make sure you understand what that means. Your husband will be taken into custody. There will be charges filed. This will become a criminal matter, not just a civil divorce issue. Are you prepared for that? I looked through the glass at Ryan, the man I'd spent 12 years of my life with, the father of my children, and I felt a cold certainty settle over me. Double quotes. Yes, arrest him. He made his choice when he decided to steal from me. Officer Davis nodded approvingly. Good. You're doing the right thing. Too many people let their spouses get away with this kind of fraud because they're embarrassed or hope to work things out. But financial abuse is abuse, and it should have consequences. She radioed to her partner, and they walked out onto the banking floor. I watched through the glass as the officers approached Ryan and the fake Sarah. Ryan looked up, confused at first, then alarmed as Officer Davis began speaking to him. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I saw Ryan's face go from confusion to panic. He started gesturing, trying to explain something, but the officers weren't listening. They asked to see his identification and the woman's identification. When they examined the fake ID, they said something else, and suddenly both Ryan and the woman were being placed in handcuffs. Ryan looked around wildly, searching for an exit, for help, for something. His eyes landed on the window I was standing behind, and even though I knew he couldn't see me through the one-way glass, I felt like his gaze went right through me. Then the officers were walking him and the woman toward the exit, both of them in handcuffs, other customers staring and whispering. It was humiliating for him being arrested in public, and some small part of me felt satisfied by that. After they were taken away, Monica came back to check on me. Are you okay? I know this must be incredibly shocking. I nodded slowly. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, but I will be. Can you tell me more about what was on our accounts? You said he was trying to withdraw $50,000. How much do we have total? Monica pulled up the accounts on her computer. Your joint checking account has $62,000. You also have a joint savings account with $40,000 and investment accounts, totaling about $250,000. Everything is joint, meaning either of you can access it individually, which is why what your husband was attempting was technically legal in terms of access rights, but becomes illegal because he was using fraud and a fake identity to do it. Why would he use a fake identity if he could access the accounts himself? I asked, confused. Monica thought about it. My guess, he wanted it to look like you withdrew the money. If he just took $50,000 himself, you'd notice immediately and question him. But if there was a withdrawal record showing Sarah Patterson withdrew it with ID and signatures, he could claim you did it and forgot, or that you were confused. He was setting up a way to gaslight you about the money disappearing. The realization of how calculated this was made me feel sick. This wasn't a spur-of-a-moment decision. Ryan had planned this. He'd found a woman who looked like me, helped her create a fake ID, coordinated this bank visit, and faked a business trip to Chicago to cover his tracks. How long had he been planning this? What else had he done that I didn't know about? I need to check something, I said suddenly. You said either of us can access these accounts individually? Can you show me the transaction history for the past year? Monica pulled up the records and we went through them together. At first, everything looked normal. Regular deposits from Ryan's paychecks and my freelance income. Regular expenses and transfers. But then Monica pointed something out. Look at these withdrawals here. Every month for the past 8 months, $5,000 each time, taken out as cash. I leaned closer to look. She was right. Every month, around the same time, there was a $5,000 cash withdrawal. I never made those withdrawals. And Ryan never mentioned taking out cash. Monica scrolled further. That's $40,000 over 8 months. Where did that money go? I felt cold dread settling in my stomach. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Monica helped me secure my accounts, changing passwords and PINs, setting up alerts for any attempted access, and transferring half the money from the joint accounts into new accounts in my name only. She also gave me copies of all the security footage and transaction records, telling me I'd need them for the divorce proceedings that were clearly coming. When I finally left the bank 3 hours after Monica's initial call, I felt numb and overwhelmed, but also strangely my husband had been stealing from me for months. He'd attempted to steal $50,000 more using a woman with a fake ID. He'd lied about being in Chicago, and I was going to find out why. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions. Who was the woman? Where had Ryan met her? What was the $40,000 for? Was he having an affair? Was he in some kind of trouble? I pulled into my driveway and sat in my car for a long moment, trying to decide what to do next. Then I remembered Ryan's home office. He kept files there, personal records, his laptop when he wasn't traveling. Maybe there were answers there. I went inside and straight to Ryan's office, a small room off the main hallway that he'd claimed as his workspace. I'd rarely gone in there, respecting his privacy and his need for a professional space at home. But privacy didn't matter anymore. I started going through his filing cabinets, pulling out folders of bank statements, tax returns, business documents. At first, I didn't find anything unusual, just normal financial records and work papers. Then I found a folder labeled personal in the back of the bottom drawer. Inside were papers that made my blood run cold. Hotel receipts from places in Portland. Multiple receipts over the past 8 months, always for the same hotel downtown. Restaurant receipts from expensive places I'd never been to with Ryan. Jewelry store receipts for items I'd never received. And photographs, dozens of photographs of Ryan with the woman from the bank, the fake Sarah. They were clearly a couple in these photos, holding hands, kissing, smiling at each other. Some of the photos were from restaurants and hotels. Others were from what looked like an apartment I didn't recognize. I sat on the floor of Ryan's office, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, and tried to process what I was seeing. My husband had been having an affair for at least 8 months. He'd been spending thousands of dollars on this woman, taking her to nice places, buying her gifts, staying with her at hotels, and she looked like me. He'd literally found a mistress who resembled his wife. The psychological implications of that were disturbing. I kept digging through the folder and found something else. A lease agreement for an apartment downtown in Ryan's name only. He'd rented a second apartment, a 1-bedroom place in the Pearl District, 5 months ago. The monthly rent was $2,000. I did the math quickly. 5 months at $2,000 a month was $10,000. That, plus the $5,000 monthly withdrawals, meant Ryan had been funneling at least $60,000 into this secret life over the past 8 months. But why? If he was having an affair, why not just leave me? Why the elaborate deception, the fake ID, the attempted theft? I kept searching and found a stack of papers that explained everything. Legal documents, consultation notes from a divorce attorney, and a handwritten plan in Ryan's writing. As I read through it, the full scope of his betrayal became clear. Ryan had been planning to leave me for months, but he didn't want to split our assets fairly in a divorce. He wanted to take everything. The plan laid out in his notes was methodical and cruel. First, he'd been slowly withdrawing cash each month and hiding it, building a fund that wouldn't show up in our asset division. Second, he'd rented the apartment in his name only, so he'd have a place to go that I couldn't claim any interest in. Third, he'd been working with the fake Sarah, whose real name was apparently Crystal, to prepare for the big theft. The plan was for Crystal to impersonate me at the bank and withdraw as much money as possible. Ryan would then close out the remaining joint accounts, claiming he had the right to do so. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd have already moved most of our liquid assets into accounts I couldn't access. He'd file for divorce immediately after, and I'd be left with almost nothing to fight him with. The notes even mentioned trying to get me to sign documents under false pretenses. That would give him more control over our assets. But the most disturbing part was a section about the kids. Ryan had written that he'd seek full custody, claiming I was an unfit mother. He planned to use my freelance work schedule against me, arguing I was always working and neglecting the children. He'd lined up witnesses, people who'd testified that I was inattentive or unstable. It was all lies. But he'd constructed an entire false narrative to destroy me in every possible way. I took pictures of everything with my phone, making sure I had documentation of all of it. Then I called my sister Emma, who lived 20 minutes away. Em, I need your help. Can you come over right now? It's an emergency. She heard the tone in my voice and didn't ask questions. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When Emma arrived, I showed her everything. The bank attempted fraud, the affair evidence, Ryan's written plan to destroy me financially and take my children. Emma's face went from shock to fury as she looked through it all. Sarah, this is insane. This is criminal. He's not just cheating. He's trying to ruin your entire life. I nodded, surprisingly calm now that I understood the full picture. I know, and I need to make sure he doesn't get away with any of it. Emma, who was a paralegal at a law firm, immediately went into professional mode. Okay, first thing, you need a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best divorce attorney in Portland. Someone who handles high-conflict cases with financial fraud. I know someone, Rebecca Tan. She's ruthless and she's expensive, but she's worth every penny. Let me call her right now and see if she can see you today. Rebecca Tan agreed to meet me that evening at her office downtown. I brought all the evidence, the bank records, Monica's documentation, the photos of Ryan with Crystal, the lease for the secret apartment, and most damningly, Ryan's handwritten plan to destroy me. Rebecca, a sharp woman in her 50s, reviewed everything with growing intensity. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like admiration. "Mrs. Patterson, your husband made a critical error. He wrote everything down. He documented his own fraud and conspiracy. This is the kind of evidence that wins cases decisively." Over the next 2 hours, Rebecca and I planned my strategy. First, file for divorce immediately before Ryan could, citing his infidelity and attempted fraud. Second, file for emergency orders protecting all our assets and preventing Ryan from accessing anything. Third, seek full custody of the children with supervised visitation for Ryan only, using his criminal charges and his written plans against him. Fourth, sue for divorce on grounds that would give me the maximum possible settlement, including compensation for his fraud and emotional distress. "Your husband thought he was being clever," Rebecca said, "but he left a trail a mile wide. The bank has him on camera attempting fraud. The police have arrested him. You have documentation of his affair and his hidden assets. You have his own handwritten plan proving premeditation. He has no defense. By the time I'm done, he'll be lucky if he gets supervised visitation with his kids and doesn't go to prison." That night, I picked up Madison and Tyler from their after-school program, brought them home, and tried to act normal while my world was falling apart. I made dinner, helped with homework, and tucked them into bed, all while knowing their father was in jail and their family was about to be torn apart. After they were asleep, I sat in the kitchen with Emma and let myself cry for the first time that day. Not for Ryan, but for my kids who were about to learn their father was a criminal and a liar. For the life I'd thought I had that turned out to be built on deception. For the trust I'd given that had been so thoroughly betrayed. Ryan called me from jail around 10 p.m. I'd been added to his approved call list somehow. I answered, curious what he'd have to say. "Sarah, thank God you have to help me. This is all a huge misunderstanding. That woman at the bank, Crystal, she tricked me. She told me she was you, that she'd lost her ID and needed me to help her get money out. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to believe me. Please, you have to bail me out." I let him talk, let him spin his lies, and then I said calmly, "Ryan, I went through your office. I found everything. The hotel receipts, the photos, the apartment lease, your written plan to steal everything and take my children. I know about the 8 months of cash withdrawals. I know you've been planning this for a long time, so don't insult me by pretending Crystal tricked you." There was a long silence. Then Ryan's voice changed, became harder. "You went through my private office. That's a violation of my privacy. Anything you found is inadmissible." I laughed without humor. "We're married, Ryan. I have every right to access files in my own house, and everything I found is absolutely admissible. I've already given it all to my lawyer. Speaking of which, you should know that I filed for divorce this afternoon. The papers will be served to you tomorrow. I'm seeking full custody of Madison and Tyler, full control of all marital assets, and compensation for your attempted fraud. Your plan to destroy me failed, and now you're going to face the consequences." Ryan started yelling then, threats and accusations and desperate pleas all mixed together. I hung up on him mid-sentence and blocked his number. Then I called the jail and had my number removed from his approved call list. He'd have to communicate through lawyers from now on. That was the last time I spoke to Ryan directly. The next few months were intense but ultimately satisfying. Ryan's arrest made the local news since attempted bank fraud involving fake IDs was sensational enough to warrant coverage. His employer, the investment firm, immediately put him on suspension pending investigation. When they learned he'd been misusing company resources and potentially defrauding clients using similar schemes, they fired him and referred the matter to financial regulators. Ryan's professional reputation was destroyed overnight. Crystal, the fake Sarah, turned out to be Ryan's mistress of 8 months who he'd convinced to help him with the bank scheme by promising her a new life together once he'd gotten rid of me and taken all the money. She flipped on him quickly when she realized she was facing serious prison time. providing detailed testimony about his planning and manipulation. Apparently, he'd specifically sought her out because she resembled me, thinking that would somehow make the transition easier for the kids when he replaced me with her. The narcissism and calculation required for that plan was breathtaking. The divorce was finalized in 6 months, unusually fast because Ryan had no leverage and no credibility. The judge was not sympathetic to a man who'd been arrested, attempting to defraud his wife using a fake identity. I got primary custody of Madison and Tyler, with Ryan having only supervised visitation until he completed counseling and proved financial stability. I got the house, 70% of all marital assets, including his retirement accounts, and substantial monthly child support and spousal support. Ryan also had to reimburse me for the $40,000 he'd stolen in cash withdrawals, plus pay my legal fees. Ryan pleaded guilty to attempted fraud and identity theft, receiving 2 years probation, community service, and fines. He avoided prison largely because Crystal testified that she'd been the one with the fake ID and he'd only been an accessory. But the criminal record meant his career in finance was over. Last I heard, he was working as a sales associate at an electronics store, making a fraction of what he used to earn and struggling to pay his court-ordered support. As for me, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I expanded my freelance business, taking on bigger clients and raising my rates significantly. I hired a financial advisor to help me manage the settlement money wisely. I put the kids in therapy to help them process their father's betrayal and the divorce. And I focused on creating a stable, honest home for them where they felt safe and valued. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I was at a coffee shop when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to see Monica Garcia, the bank employee who'd saved me by making that phone call. Mrs. Patterson. Or is it Ms. now? I've thought about you so many times. How are you doing? I smiled, genuinely happy to see her. It's Sarah, please. And I'm doing really well. Actually, thanks to you. We sat down and talked for an hour, catching up. Monica told me she'd been worried about calling me that day, worried she'd be overstepping or causing problems in my marriage, but her instincts had told her something was very wrong and she'd trusted them. I've been working in banks for 20 years, she said, and I've seen a lot of financial abuse. Spouses stealing from each other, hiding money, using joint accounts as weapons. Most of the time, I'm not allowed to intervene because technically they have legal access to the accounts. But when I saw that fake ID, I knew this was beyond normal marital issues. This was criminal, and I had to warn you. I took her hand across the table. Monica, you changed my life that day. If you hadn't called, Ryan would have gotten away with it. He'd have stolen $50,000, maybe more later. He'd have destroyed me financially and legally. You saved me from that. I don't know how to thank you enough. Monica squeezed my hand and smiled. You don't have to thank me. Seeing you here, strong and successful and moving forward. That's all the thanks I need. That's why I did it. Now, 2 years after that phone call, I can look back and see it as the moment everything changed. That one call from a stranger who cared enough to warn me, who trusted her instincts and took a risk to help someone she'd never met. It exposed my husband's betrayal before he could execute his full plan. It gave me time to protect myself and my children. It provided evidence that ensured justice in the divorce. One phone call saved my entire future. And it taught me something important. Trust your instincts. And when you see something wrong, speak up. Monica didn't have to call me. She could have processed the transaction and let me figure it out later. But she saw something wrong and she acted. Even though it wasn't technically her responsibility, that kind of courage, that willingness to get involved when you see injustice, that's what changes lives. So that's my story. The story of how a bank employee's phone call exposed my husband's plan to destroy me and led to me rebuilding my life stronger than before. It's a reminder that sometimes the help we need comes from unexpected places. That sometimes strangers care more about our well-being than the people we trust most. And that betrayal, as painful as it is, can become the catalyst for transformation if we're brave enough to face it head-on. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for being part of this community where we share experiences and lift each other up. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Would you have pressed charges against your spouse? What would you have done in my situation? I want to hear your thoughts and your own stories. And if this story resonated with you, if it helped you see your own situation differently or gave you courage to trust your instincts, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories of survival, justice, and finding strength in the worst moments. I'm looking forward to reading your comments and connecting with you all. On the screen, you can see 2 more powerful stories about people who discovered betrayal and fought back. There's so much more content on this channel. Stories of courage and revenge and rebuilding after everything falls apart. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, remember, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags because you want to believe the best in people. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them and protect yourself. Take care of yourselves, be strong, and know that you deserve honesty, respect, and a partner who would never dream of stealing from you. With love and respect, I'll see you in the next one.